Robot Dad. I am a robot dad. I only do what I'm told to do because of the 3 laws of robotics. Law number 1, a robot will always obey a human. Law number 2, a robot will not hurt a human. Law number 3, a robot will not obey a human to hurt another human. I am Robot Dad. I only do what I am told. Oh, that was a game I used to play with my kids. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm not sure they did. It gets a little irritating when you are Robot Dad for a long time, but it's fun. And I love robots. And I know that a lot of kids there are reading The Wild Robot, about a robot that goes and lives on its own and can it survive. So robots have always fascinated me. And I'll tell you why. When I was your age, the only types of books that I ever remember liking to read were science fiction books. Science fiction where you take something that is scientific and you blast it into the future where there's robots and aliens and spaceships. And to this day, I think that my love for science fiction helped me become a much better reader. And robots are so cool to learn about. In fact, robots have played a pretty big role in books and in movies, especially science fiction movies. And I'm thinking about some of the best robots that I can remember. And my very first robot memory was Robbie the robot. Robbie the robot was this amazing robot that was in a movie called Forbidden Planet. And Robbie the robot, somebody said that he was the hardest working robot in Hollywood because he showed up in a lot of movies. But that was the first movie that he showed up, Forbidden Planet, where he was kind of helpful and not helpful because he's a robot. Now, if you go back a little bit further, there's a famous science fiction author by the name of Isaac Asimov. And Isaac Asimov, he coined the 3 laws of robotics. And this is what all robots, according to science fiction genre, are supposed to follow. And I wonder if the wild robot follows these. So law number 1 says, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to be injured. So a robot can't hurt somebody or just stand there and let someone be hurt. Law number 2, a robot must obey the orders given it to by a human being, except when such orders would conflict with the first law of robotics. And law number 3, a robot must protect his own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second laws. So if that's robot world where they have to obey humans and they can't hurt humans and they have to save themselves, you can imagine there's quite a few cool stories from that. However, like most stories and Hollywood stories, they don't always follow the laws of robotics. In fact, and we're not going to talk a lot about it, there's a lot of bad robots out there. Terminator and all those guys who sometimes turn good. But I love learning about robots and reading about robots. Now, if you think of the word robot, I looked it up and the word comes from an old Slavic church word, which means forced servitude or drudgery or a servant. So the word robot, it was first used by a man by the name of Karl Kepik. And Karl Kepik wrote a play, a playwright, kind of like a story, but people acted out. In 1920, he wrote a play called R.U.S. Here's a picture from that R.U.S. And Rostrom's Universal Robots. And it's where a company made these robots, and these robots came to help everybody, and pretty soon they did everything. They cleaned the house, they drove the cars, they were in the army, they did everything until finally they took over the earth. It's just a story, kids. They took over the earth and they had got to, there was only one human left when they realized, oh no, we can't make more robots. What are we going to do? Well, I'll let you read the story to find out what happens. So robots are pretty cool things. They're usually a machine. Now, later on, robots took on human-like faces, and we call those androids. But I like the retro robots. Robots that kind of look like metal boxes and rubber hinges when they walk around, kind of like Robbie the Robot and some of the other robots. And robots today can be any size or any shape. But if it looks like a human, we call that an android, with the word like a droid and andro, meaning human-like. Android. And there's been a lot of those in movies, Westworld and a whole bunch of other science fiction movies where the robot looked like a person. I don't know, that might be kind of creepy for me. I kind of like my robots retro and boxy. Now, there was a whole series of movies, the Star Wars movies, that really made robots famous. And I have one of my most famous one right here, a droid or a robot, R2-D2. R2-D2, who held the secret of the Rebel Rebellion. And of course, everybody loved C-3PO, who was fluent in over 6,000 different plus languages. And even the new Star Wars had other robots coming in. The Jawas, if you're a robot, watch out for Jawas. Those little creatures who take robots apart and sell the parts. So robots are pretty amazing things. But today, robots are used in industry, which is manufacturing, where we build things, and robots are also used in medicine. So in industry, they do a lot of different jobs. And I like to think of it as the 3 Ds. The robots today can do 3 Ds. Number one, if it's dull, like if you had to file the same circle on a transmission over and over and over again, it would be dull. Your arm would get sore. A robot can do that with never complaining. So if things are dull or if things are dangerous, there are robots that can go into buildings and put out a fire or find someone lost or shut down something that's going to explode, or a robot that can go deep in the ocean that would crush a person, or high into outer space. So robots can do things that are dangerous or dull. And the last D on the 3 Ds is robots can do things that are dirty, things that would mess up and be just a mess, like welding cars or deburring transmissions. So in industry, we use robots all the time. And we could also, like our friend R2-D2 here, we can have optical robots that they can see things and recognize what part goes where. So robots are getting smarter and smarter because we program them. I know in your schools, you take some classes on technology, and you probably have got to program some of those yellow and blue robots. And there might even be some robot competitions that you are participating in where you learn how to program a robot. You see, a robot, there's an axiom that says in computers, garbage in, garbage out. On most robots, you type in the program that tells the robot exactly what to do. And like any software, you got to make sure it's right. And that's called programming a robot. Well, there's even a robot that went into space to help replace a battery in a satellite called Solar Max. Remember the 3 Ds, dull, dangerous, or it could be dirty work. So robots are here to stay. But what's made robots so cool these days is something called AI. Now, AI stands for artificial intelligence. So computer programmers, and maybe you kids who program computers can learn how to do this, computer programmers have found ways to teach robots, to show them so many different types of programs and problems that they know how to solve it, and they start to learn as they do the job. There's a famous race, a solar-powered race, where they have vehicles try to cross the desert through all kind of canyons and rocks and sagebrush. And those robot cars have to learn how to get around things. In fact, here in Purdue University is going to be the one stretch of highway in the whole world where a robot car can go down it, get recharged, and have AI, artificial intelligence, and learn how to drive. I don't know if I'll see it, but you, my friends in school, will one day probably ride in a car that is an AI robotic car. Oh, brother, I've seen how people drive without robots. I hope it's a lot better. So robots are kind of cool. Now, if we talk about androids, an android takes the shape of a human. And so humans, we have bones inside of us. And these bones are hollow, and that's our structure. But robots can be made with very strong metals and alloys, cobalt, chrome, and different types of titanium that's lightweight and strong. But the trouble is, how do you make a robot hand? For example, this hand right here, this is my Halloween hand. And if I squeeze it down here, I can make it close. But if you think about a hand, I can pick up an egg with my hand, and then these two fingers hold it, and these two fingers squeeze it. So how do you teach something with sensories to pick up something delicate, but also to be able to crush it? That is a hard engineering skill. One thing you might want to try, and I've done this, this is, I have a lesson that your teachers know about. This is my robotic finger, and I have some joints, 3 different joints here, and if I pull it like this, it bends, and if I pull it like this, hopefully it straightens up. Or you have a broken finger. So if you think about the ligaments inside of your bone, inside of your fingers, and this is one way you can make a finger bend. And I have an activity where you can learn how to do this, make a robot finger. Now you have to have one where the muscle contracts and squeezes it, and one where, oh my goodness, that would be my finger would really hurt if I did that. Then I tried to make a robot hand. And my robot hand here, if you take a look at it, I have all the ligaments down here where if you pull on them, hopefully, oh, there we go. And this took me, oh, this is kind of cool. Over the years, NASA has sent 5 robotic vehicles to Mars. They're called rovers. Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and even now, Perseverance is exploring the surface of Mars, robots in space. Another way robots are used is in surgery and medicine. In fact, they're starting to be more popular because most surgeons who are skilled and can make incisions and can tie and can cut with a laser, you just can't match the precision of a robot that does that. Now, you may not want to be operated on by a robot with, we know how computers, sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to and they get stuck and all that. But robot-assisted medicine is a big and upcoming thing. You might be a surgeon that uses a robot in an operation. In fact, I'm getting ready to have my knee replaced, and they use a robot called Rosa to make the most perfect cut to put in the new metallic knees. I guess I'm gonna be part robot. I got titanium in this knee and cobalt chrome in that knee. Maybe I am turning into a robot dad. But medicine is another place where robots are making great technology and great 2D achievements. But I guess one of my favorite robots of all time comes from a movie called The Day the Earth Stood Still. Now, it's a science fiction movie where this giant flying saucer lands in Washington, D.C., and out comes my favorite robot of all time, GORT. This is GORT, a giant metallic robot. Now, he's not good or he's not bad, but he does have the ability to x-ray and destroy everything on the planet. Now, an alien comes with him and tries to find out if people are good or bad. And he leaves GORT to guard the spaceship. And if he doesn't come back in like 3 days, GORT's gonna destroy the Earth. unless you know the password. And boys and girls, I know the password. If you ever run into GORT, all you have to say is this. Are you ready? Klaatu, barada, nikto. If you say Klaatu, barada, nikto, GORT will power down like all robots and follow the rules of robotics. So I hope you enjoyed reading The Wild Robot, because by studying robots, we really learn more about humans and how we are. And hey, dads out there, never hurts to be a robot dad. Robot dad, I will walk forward. I will only do what you say. Thanks for listening up and learning a little about robots and the world of androids. See you next time.